Riverside, Missouri, a small town bordering Highway 61, where the daytime hums with trucks pulling in, and the nights are left with only streetlights and the vague hum of late-night traffic. Caleb Rourke sat in a rented pickup truck, staring through the misted window at one of the very branches he had built with his own two hands. Roost Line Diner, location number 24. A 24/7 restaurant once praised as the most reliable late-night diner in central Missouri. But lately, something had gone wrong. He was never the kind of CEO who sat behind a desk. 6 years ago, when he bought the failing diner chain from a private equity firm that had cut its losses, Caleb worked the kitchen himself, repaired the fryers, trained staff, and had even personally confronted a customer who insulted a nervous young waitress on her first day. But the more he expanded, the wider the gap became. 24 locations, 300 employees, 1,800 reports per month, and recently Store 24 began receiving eerily consistent complaints. Unfriendly attitude, missing items on orders, waited 40 minutes for a cold sandwich. But in the internal reports, everything looked pristine. Order volume on target, service speed regularly updated, and most importantly, night shift labor cost stable. Victor Salazar, the regional manager overseeing the Riverside area, called it a cyclical hiccup. According to him, just a few nights short-staffed, it'll bounce back. Caleb didn't buy it. Reports never told the truth the way human eyes did. He reclined his seat, glanced in the rearview mirror, and slowly removed his fake beard. His usual sandy blonde hair had been dyed an ashen gray, cropped shorter than usual. Plastic frame glasses, a charcoal hoodie, rubber-soled slip-resistant shoes. Every detail had been carefully prepared. Pinned to his chest was a fresh name tag, Nick Raines. Trainee transferred from location 17. The tag had been printed on the same machine used in all the stores for onboarding new hires. A quiet privilege of the founder, one nobody ever questioned. 9:52 p.m. Light rain. He entered through the back door of Roost Line 24. No one looked up. The kitchen glowed under harsh neon, the air laced with the lingering scent of old fryer oil. The receipt printer clicked in steady rhythm like a heartbeat. A square-jawed, buzz-cut man stood behind the register, counting cash. "You the new guy?" A deep voice, emotionless. "Yeah, from store 17. Nick." Caleb nodded. "Got slip-resistant shoes?" "Yep." "Good, we're short. Follow me." No greeting, no safety instructions, no station chart. Caleb was swept into the rhythm of the shift, as if he'd always been part of it. 10:15 p.m., he stood beside two strangers. Rhea Collins, a thin woman in her late 20s at the fry station, hands in thick gloves, and Jalen Moore, a young black college student in a backward cap, spinning a spatula on the grill like a worn-out DJ. They didn't talk. Only their hands moved, quick, steady, and so tired there was no room left for error. 11:30 p.m., the rain thickened. The kitchen steamed with heat, but Rhea still shivered. Caleb noticed her limping each time she stepped back toward the supply closet. Her left leg tilted awkwardly, like it had been injured. He tried to start small talk. "You all right?" "Yeah." The reply was clipped without turning her head. "We all are." He meant to ask more, but didn't get the chance. 1:32 a.m. A group of customers walked in. 7 people. Loud, barking orders. Not unusual, but that night everything was already maxed out. Jalen practically sprinted from the grill to the prep station. His shirt was soaked in sweat, his face flushed. Rhea's hands trembled as she reached for each basket of fried chicken. Caleb struggled to manage the takeout queue, but the order volume was outpacing even the printer's capacity. At that moment, Eli Kane, the night shift manager, emerged from the office for the first time in nearly 2 hours. "Get moving. What is this? A sleepover?" Rhea jumped, nearly dropping the fryer basket. Jalen clenched his jaw. Caleb turned to face Eli, a man chewing gum, hands on hips, eyes heavy with detached authority. He knew. In that moment, something was deeply wrong. 2:50 a.m. The last customers left. Caleb had just dumped a trash bag when he heard Rhea behind the ice machine. "Done yet?" My legs are killing me. From the counter, Eli barked back, "Nope. Clean up. We've got surprise health checks this week." Jalen groaned. "Our shift ended 15 minutes ago." Eli shrugged. "You want to keep your hours or not? Then stay. If not, clock out. But clean up first." Rhea turned to Caleb and whispered, her voice like wind scraping across a steel countertop. "We don't get paid past 3 a.m. Caleb froze. His hand gripped the mop handle, but his blood boiled like an unplugged fryer. Not because of the night work, but because this was his restaurant. His name was on the license, and he had no idea how long this had been going on. 4:10 a.m., Eli said. "All right, go home." No one said goodbye. No one smiled. Rhea limped out the back door. Jalen slung a backpack over his shoulders like he was carrying the weight of disappointment itself. Caleb followed them into the quiet parking lot. "Wait, what happened tonight? The unpaid time. Does that happen a lot?" Jalen hesitated. Rhea looked away. "Every night," Jalen said softly. "Anyone who complains loses hours." Caleb asked, "Does Victor know?" Rhea exhaled, her voice thick with sarcasm. "He shows up once a month. Drinks coffee, compliments the food, then leaves." Caleb watched them disappear into the mist. His hands tightened around the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. That night, he didn't drive back to the hotel. He opened his phone, signed up for another shift. Next time, he wouldn't just be working, he'd be changing everything. Time didn't pass by the clock in the kitchen of Riverside 24. It passed by the beep of the fryer, the sizzle of the grill, and the hurried footsteps on the oil-slick tiles. Every order felt like a small cut into already depleted spirits. Caleb, or rather Nick, was still stationed at the drive-thru, ears tuned in, eyes constantly scanning, and heart pounding. Not because of the work pace, but because of the suffocating atmosphere that had swallowed the place whole. He had never seen a work crew quite like this. No laughter, no complaining, not even a single curse. Only a silence so exhausted it numbed the air. Rhea's movements had noticeably slowed. Every time she bent to plate food, her hands trembled slightly. Caleb noticed a faint red mark on her sleeve, possibly an old burn or a fresh one. Jalen, now having pushed out nearly 80 grill orders, had sweat-soaked his shirt, and his right hand trembled slightly each time he flipped a patty. Under the cold white lights, Caleb realized they weren't just tired. They were tired past the point of knowing what tired meant. 1:57 a.m. A customer at the pickup counter barked loudly, "I ordered that chicken combo forever ago. The app says it was ready 15 minutes ago." Jalen looked like he wanted to snap back, but swallowed it. Rhea lowered her head. "Sorry, it's coming right up." The customer scoffed, "Not my fault you people can't figure out a shift schedule." Caleb clenched his fist but kept his cool. He quietly stepped over, grabbed the combo, double-checked it, and slid it to the counter. "Thanks for waiting. Hope you have a smooth night." His voice was steady, each word deliberate. By 2:30, the team was practically collapsing. Rhea leaned against the ice bin, hands cradling her stomach like she was trying to hold in her breath. Jalen sat in the corner, panting. Caleb silently tidied the station, emptied the trays of melted ice, wiped oil splatter from the stovetop. He thought that tonight, no matter how draining, was nearly over. Just a little longer. But then, Eli walked out. No warning, no sympathy. Eyes cold as steel, chewing gum slowly, his voice landed like a knock at the door in the middle of the night. "Deep clean. All of it." Rhea looked up, lips cracked. "Deep clean?" Eli repeated, not making eye contact. "Health inspector could show up any time. I don't want a single grease stain on these walls. Don't like it? Clock out." Jalen shot up. "You serious? At this hour?" "Hour doesn't matter." Eli shrugged. "You want to keep your schedule next week? Or dream about a new job?" Silence filled the room. Rhea didn't get up right away. She looked at Caleb, her eyes red, like she'd just been slapped with something too familiar. "It's like this every night," she whispered. "We don't have a choice." Caleb felt his chest sink. He knew this kind of silence. It wasn't submission. It was the state of people who once spoke up. and were ignored. They didn't stop talking because they agreed. They stopped because no one stayed long enough to listen. 3:10 a.m. Caleb knelt on the floor beside Rhea. Her hands were soaked in soapy water, her hair plastered to her neck. Jalen was wiping down the fryer, using a dry rag instead of gloves. The gloves had run out around 1 a.m. No one complained, no one spoke. Only the sound of enduring. 4:02 a.m. Eli finally said, "All right, go home." Rhea stood slowly like an old woman, picking up a worn coat. Jalen said nothing, slung on his backpack, and walked out the back door. Caleb washed his hands, dried them, and followed them into the parking lot. "Wait," he called out. I, I just want to know. When did this all start?" Jalen looked down at the pavement. Rhea turned away. "Since winter, maybe," Jalen said. "At first it was 15 minutes, then 30. Now it's almost an hour. Every night." Caleb lowered his voice. "Eli knows. He's the one ordering it." "What about Victor?" Rhea laughed, without joy. "Victor shows up once a month, chats with Eli, drinks a coffee, shakes a few hands, then vanishes like some politician before an election." Caleb didn't say another word. He watched them leave. Rhea limped through the puddles. Jalen hunched forward, shoulders slumped like a folding chair. 4:14 a.m. Caleb sat alone in the truck, engine off, radio off. Eyes fixed on the Roost Line diner sign reflecting soft yellow light. His hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles had turned white. He didn't know who he was angrier at. Eli, Victor, or himself, because he hadn't known. But the next time he came back, he wouldn't come just to observe. Saturday, 8:13 p.m. Caleb Rourke returned to Roost Line Diner, location 24, for the second time, still in the guise of Nick Raines, the forgettable trainee. But this time, he wasn't there to learn. He was there to observe and remember. Every behavior, every word, every grease stain the internal reports had conveniently ignored. His phone was open to a note-taking app. A new tab was titled, The Night Ledger. Every observation was coded with its own symbol, warning sign for safety violations, red circle with a line through it for abuse of authority, an exclamation mark for anything that made him feel like the one person who should have been present had been absent for far too long. Stepping into the kitchen, he saw Jalen already at the grill, his shirt soaked through with sweat despite the AC still running. Rhea arrived shortly after, her steps heavy, left leg wrapped in wrinkled white gauze. The kind of wrap done in a rush, not by a professional. Caleb held the storeroom door open for her and asked quietly, "Your leg, is it okay?" She nodded, but didn't smile. "It's okay, as long as I don't stop." "Have you seen a doctor?" Rhea paused, then tilted her head and gave a faint, hopeless kind of smile. "Around here, a break means a break forever. You know that." Caleb didn't know how to respond, but something twisted in his chest. 9:38 p.m. The walk-in fridge door swung open. A man in a delivery uniform, no name tag, rolled in a large plastic bin. No knock, no signature, no explanation. He dropped the bin and left without a word. Jalen frowned. "What is that?" "That's not our supplier." Rhea shook her head too. "Eli switched vendors last week, said it was cheaper." Caleb stepped up and opened the bin. Inside were bags of frozen beef. No FDA labels, no lot numbers, no packaging dates. One of the bags was torn at the edge, and the thawing ice exposed grayish, mushy meat with an odd smell. He picked up the bag and turned to Jalen. "You ever seen this label before?" "Never," Jalen replied. "One look and you know it's not up to code." Caleb set the bag down and walked to the office. Knocked twice. No response. He knocked harder. The door flung open. Eli stood there, holding a Starbucks cup, giving Caleb a look like he'd just been dragged out of a pleasant dream. "What?" "The delivery we just got. No inspection labels. Some of it's torn. Could be a violation." Eli licked his lips, not even glancing at the bin. "So? We can't serve that. It's a food safety risk." Eli crossed his arms, tilted his head, and sneered. "Who the hell are you to question my vendor?" Caleb froze for a second. That question wasn't just an insult. It was the clearest sign yet that power here had gone unchecked. No one asked questions because no one was allowed to. He answered softly, "Just a trainee, I guess." Eli smirked. "Good. Then grill the meat. Stay out of grown-up business." Caleb turned away, but he had already recorded the entire exchange, using a passive recording feature in his app. Eli denied food safety responsibility. Unverified vendor used. Shut down questioning. The kitchen snapped back into its rushed rhythm. But Caleb was no longer just working. He was observing everything like an architect watching cracks in the foundation. 10:57 p.m. Jalen leaned over, voice low as he slid a double burger into a bag. "There's a camera in that office. 4 of them. No mic, but enough to track every move." Caleb looked around. In the corners, he spotted them. Tiny black domes, the kind used in convenience stores, discreetly mounted where they'd be hard to notice. "Not for safety, for control," Jalen continued. "He tracks who uses the bathroom and for how long, who bends down to mop how many times." Caleb shivered, not from being watched, but from what he realized. He had specifically banned surveillance like this. Only entryway security cameras were allowed, never aimed at workstations. Eli had bypassed company policy, installed a private system. Caleb added to the note, "Installed unauthorized surveillance, created a culture of policing instead of support." Midnight passed. The shift continued like a song everyone knew too well, to the point where no one noticed which note was off. But for Caleb, every note was wrong. He quietly unlocked his phone and scrolled to the top of the notes. The first line he rewrote in all caps. "They don't need to be saved. They need to be heard." And he knew the next night would be when he started speaking. 2 a.m. The front glass door of Roost Line Diner swung open with a soft chime. It wasn't a regular customer nor a weary delivery driver, but a woman in a Navy uniform, a government employee badge clipped to her shoulder, walking in with a presence that left no room for confusion. About 5 feet 5 inches, upright posture, eyes sharp as needles, black hair neatly tied in a bun. Carla Whitman, County Food Safety Coordinator. She walked straight to the counter without introducing herself, just held up her ID badge. "Health inspection. I need 5 minutes for a surprise check, starting with the cold storage." Jalen froze mid-motion. Rhea dropped her second glove on the floor. Caleb immediately looked up, as Eli Kane burst out from the surveillance room as if he'd just been doused with boiling water. "During peak hours? You couldn't have scheduled this?" Eli's voice tried to stay calm, but worry seeped through. Carla didn't flinch. "Surprise inspections don't require notice. I'll only take a few minutes. Please direct me to the back storage area." Caleb stepped forward. "I'll take you." Eli whipped around, voice low and harsh. "What the hell are you doing?" Caleb replied calmly. "I've got free hands. No need to waste anyone else's time." Carla glanced at both men, then nodded at Caleb. They walked inside. The stainless steel door behind the prep line closed, and the secrets began to unfold beneath the harsh, white LED lights. Carla opened the first freezer. Several boxes of meat were unlabeled. One box was leaking, meat juice pooling at the bottom, mixing with frost. "Do you keep a temperature log for this unit?" Carla asked, eyes still locked on the stain. Caleb answered, "I haven't seen anyone record anything all week." She opened the second unit. Several bags of frying batter with no expiration dates. The third freezer, a long crack on the left corner, where the rubber seal had deteriorated and the cold air leaked unevenly. "Some of this inventory isn't properly sealed. Internal temperature might not meet freezing standards, and this room doesn't qualify under second-tier storage requirements," Carla noted methodically. Caleb didn't say a word. He wasn't looking at the freezer. He was looking into his past. Everything he'd built, everything he believed in, being twisted by someone like Eli into a machine built to conceal, not serve. Carla turned back, adding, "I'll send the official report by Monday, but this location needs corrective action immediately before fines or shutdown orders are considered." When they returned to the kitchen, Rhea stood tucked near the prep station. Jalen had stopped grilling, and Eli was waiting, hands braced against the counter like he was trying to stabilize a ship mid-capsize. Carla said plainly, "Cooking stations need full sanitation, Storage area has multiple non-compliances. You'll receive the detailed report. Eli forced a smile. I know. It's just, we've been short-staffed lately. Night shifts are always tight. Carla cut him off. I saw 3 people operating smoothly tonight. The issue isn't headcount. She turned away without waiting for a reply. As the glass door closed behind Carla's silhouette, the kitchen fell into a dead silence. And then, Eli exploded. He marched straight toward Caleb, jabbing a finger at his face. Who do you think you are? Marching her into the freezer? Acting like you run the place? Caleb didn't step back, didn't flinch, didn't explain. He just stood there, back straight, like the only person left in that kitchen still holding on to a shred of integrity. Eli's voice dropped, nearly a hiss. You're just some nameless trainee. Don't go thinking you're somebody around here. I'm the one in charge. Caleb responded, voice steady. I can clearly see who's taking responsibility and who's hiding from it. Eli stepped in closer, breath reeking of gum, eyes wide and bloodshot, fists clenched like he was seconds from throwing a punch. But Caleb didn't move. Jalen instinctively stepped forward, protective. Rhea froze, her hands gripping the prep table. And then, Eli turned away, tossing his hand through the air like hurling something into the dark. Let's see how long you stay on the schedule next week. Caleb watched him go, no longer surprised, because he had reached the line. And the next night wouldn't just be about inspections. It would be about transformation. In the thick air tinged with the faint staleness of overused fryer oil, the wall clock's hands crawled forward. But the mindset inside the Roost Line Diner kitchen was approaching its limit. The front door chimed softly. A young delivery driver, dressed in a hoodie and carrying an insulated bag, walked up to the counter. Pick up for Jenna T. Double cheese, large fries, no onions. Jalen, who was grilling the final burger in that order, panted. Almost done. Just 2 more minutes. The driver frowned. The app says it's ready. I'm running late for the next drop. What if I get a 1 star? Jalen hesitated. I get it, but I can't. Right then, Eli Kane stepped out from the surveillance room. His voice rang out, loud, mocking. Can't what? Move faster? Or is your brain so slow you need the app to walk you through it? The entire kitchen fell silent. The driver gaped, unsure whether to back off or step in. Jalen froze, spatula in hand like it might slip. His eyes turned red, but he pressed his lips together. Eli stepped closer, locking onto him. It's amazing this company even hires people like you. Must be desperate enough to forget the bare minimum standards. And then, Caleb stepped forward, not rushing, not yelling, but his voice cut through the tension like a blade through morning fog. Enough! The kitchen stopped, like someone had hit an invisible pause button. Eli turned, eyes narrowed, smirking. Oh, the trainee speaks up? What now? Gonna file a report. Caleb stood tall, reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He opened the internal Roost Line management app, scanned his fingerprint, and scrolled down to the admin access section, a place only 3 people in the entire system could enter. The screen lit up, displaying the name Caleb Rourke, owner, founder, admin level 01. Eli went still. His lips moved, but no sound came out. Rhea, from the fry station, stood bolt upright. Jalen stared at Caleb, eyes wide. The spatula slipped from his hand, hitting the stainless steel counter with a sharp clang. Caleb held the phone toward Eli like a mirror. You ask me who I am? Then he lowered his hand, staring directly at the night shift manager who had ruled the kitchen through fear for far too long. I'm the person who should have shown up weeks ago, but I'm here now. And you're not anymore. No yelling, no rage, just a simple sentence. And it dismantled the entire power structure in an instant. Eli staggered back. What? This is a joke? No, you can't. Caleb stayed calm. You're terminated. Effective immediately. All internal accounts will be locked. You may collect your things. Eli looked around, as if hoping someone might step up for him. But no one did. No one ever had. He blurted one final time. You think this fixes everything? That punishing me makes it all better? Caleb answered gently. No, but starting with you, we're ending management by intimidation. We end it tonight, and tomorrow morning everything starts again. Eli gripped his backpack straps tightly, turned and walked out without another word. When the glass door closed behind him, it felt like the entire kitchen exhaled. Not with sound, but with the slowing heartbeats of people far too used to fear. Caleb turned to Rhea and Jalen. He didn't need to speak, but he did. Any orders still pending? Jalen nodded. One, waiting on toppings. Caleb walked to the prep station, pulled on a pair of gloves and said softly, then let's finish it. That night, the final burger was wrapped by the founder himself. Not for glory, not for image, but because no one should serve food under the hand of someone who only knows how to cut corners and threaten others. Sunday, noon. Caleb Rourke returned to Roostline Diner, but this time no disguise, no fake name tag, no hoodie. He wore a rolled-up denim shirt, carried a large printed operations board, and walked beside a woman. Petite, tightly coiled hair tied high, soft-soled kitchen shoes visibly worn from real use, not for show. Marissa Dent, operations lead at Roostline Store number 6, the one who once turned around a location previously labeled Beyond Saving. The only person Caleb trusted enough to hand over Riverside 24. You sure about this? Caleb asked quietly as they stepped through the front doors. Marissa didn't look at him. She looked at the prep station, at the floor, at the clock, and at Jalen's eyes as he wrapped up the morning shift. Then she nodded. Easier than what I saw in Greenville. They walked straight into the kitchen. No pleasantries, no small talk. Marissa rolled up her sleeves and began. Where's the cold storage? I want to see the temperature logs. Who's receiving inventory? Do we have an updated vendor list? Who hasn't been trained on expired goods handling? Her voice wasn't loud, but it was firm. Every question had a purpose, no wasted words. Jalen and Rhea saw for the first time a manager who didn't just give orders. She worked beside them. 3 p.m. The entire team was called to an emergency meeting in the dining area. Caleb stood in the back, silent, letting Marissa lead. She didn't use slides. She didn't say strategy. She just spoke. I'm not here to supervise, she began. I'm here to restore trust. The room was quiet, the kind of silence you get from people who've heard too many promises. But this time, they weren't listening because they believed. They were listening because they wanted to believe. Marissa laid the new shift board on the table. I've restructured the schedule. No more one person manning 3 stations. No more deep cleaning after 3 a.m. And if there's any overtime, it'll be logged down to the minute. She turned to Rhea. I know your leg's hurting. Starting today, no one's assigning you to the fryers. You'll be on prep and calling orders. Rhea opened her mouth as if to object, but then nodded. A nod without defense. Marissa continued. Jalen, you're staying on grill, but starting Friday, you're getting backup. The back door opened. A tall, brown-skinned woman with braided hair tied up walked in with a soft smile. Her Roostline uniform was sharp, name tag clear. Layla M. Store 4. Layla's been doing night shifts at Store 4 for over a year. She's used to the rhythm, and she's here to support, not replace. Jalen raised an eyebrow. Layla nodded at him. Not distant, but like a comrade from a different front line. Marissa wrapped up. We don't heal by saying, it'll be okay. We heal by working together, kindly, night by night. The meeting ended in silence. No applause. But as the team returned to the kitchen, something had shifted. 6:47 p.m. Caleb stood at a distance, watching like an owner who had finally stepped back into the right role. Not to command, but to protect the space where good people could do good work. Rhea at the prep station, legs still lightly braced. But for the first time, Caleb saw her without a frown. Jalen chuckled as Layla showed him a trick to reduce burger edge burn. Marissa slid a fatigue relief mat under the prep counter. A small thing, but enough to make everyone glance at each other in quiet understanding. Caleb stepped closer to the prep line. You okay? He asked Rhea. Still feels a little strange, but easier to breathe. Then breathe, I'll handle the rest. She smiled, not defensively this time, but freely. 9:01 p.m. The order station received its first ticket. The whole system came alive again. No harsh voices, no darting eyes, just the gentle hum of the grill, the steady beep of the POS, and the rhythmic scrape of a spatula, like background music. Caleb left at 9:15 when he saw no one needed him anymore. It wasn't the feeling of being pushed aside. It was the feeling of someone who knew. Trust had just been replanted, and this time it would grow. Monday, 3:10 p.m. The sky over Riverside was covered in a soft gray haze. No rain, no sun, much like the atmosphere in the small meeting room behind the Roost Line 24 kitchen. There was no microphone, no projector. Just 12 plastic chairs arranged in a half circle, and Caleb Rourke sitting in the center, not standing, not elevated, but eye level with everyone else. Rhea sat in the corner, her legs still lightly wrapped. Jalen leaned forward with his elbows on his knees, staring at his hands. Layla flipped a pen in her fingers as a subconscious habit. Marcus, a morning shift worker, had been invited to join for the first time. Marissa leaned against the fridge, silent, letting Caleb speak. "We've just come through a time that wasn't right," he began, his voice low but not ceremonial. "And I won't apologize with words. I'll fix it with actions." He placed a folder in the center of the table. "This is the actual hours log, starting from the 1st of last month. For everyone who worked overtime and didn't get credit, I've reviewed each line, and every minute will be paid in the next payroll. No forms, no requests." Jalen looked up. Rhea's fingers tightened slightly. Caleb continued. "And this?" He pulled out a stack of small plastic cards, the size of business cards, each one printed with a QR code and the line, direct line, Caleb Rourke, shucked, founder. "If the system fails, this line doesn't. This doesn't go through HR, doesn't go through a manager, doesn't pass through any filter. It sends a message straight to my device. Use it if, and only if, every other system fails you." He stepped forward and handed one to each person. Rhea took hers, staring down at it for a long moment. Marcus, who hadn't said a word all meeting, finally spoke. "What if someone like Eli shows up again?" The question hung in the air like a weight no one wanted to touch, but Caleb simply nodded. "This time," he said, "we don't just have a time clock. We have a team that knows how to see and isn't afraid to speak." He looked up and scanned the group. "Justice doesn't need a broadcast, just presence. And each of you is that presence. Every single one. No applause. But something louder echoed, the sound of posture shifting. Everyone sat a little straighter, not because they were told to, but because there was room to breathe and to stand. That evening at Riverside 24, the prep station lit up earlier than usual. Marcus and Layla split up ingredients without being asked. Rhea suggested relabeling the stock layout to avoid confusion, and Marissa simply nodded. "Do it. No forms. No approval process." Jalen helped fix the microwave light, joking that maybe one day he'd open a bakery. Everyone laughed. Not loud, but real. At 9:47 p.m., as the first order printed from the POS, Caleb stood at a distance, holding an iced double cup of coffee, watching through the kitchen window. He didn't step in. He didn't need to. Marissa glanced over at him, then turned back to the team. "All right, let's get started." Jalen adjusted his cap. Rhea fastened her brace. Layla pulled on her gloves. The night shift began, not with a loud bell, but with a breath no longer held in. By the end of the shift, 3:10 a.m., Caleb returned to the prep room. Rhea was still there, wiping down the counters, not in a rush to leave. "You stayed late?" he asked. She looked at him, no longer guarded. "Not because I'm scared," she said. "Because I want to. Because now I know, if I speak, someone will hear me." Caleb didn't say anything else. He just nodded and stepped out, leaving the soft kitchen light glowing behind him. Tuesday, 10:13 p.m. For the first time in weeks, the air inside Roostline Diner, Riverside Store 24, no longer felt stretched like a taut wire. No one was running. No one was shouting, "Check the fryer." There were no more slips from Jalen on greasy tiles, and no more moments where Rhea had to brace her injured leg just to stay balanced while bending over to bag an order. Everything moved like a song that had been rearranged. Not fast, not flashy, but steady and kind. Layla stood between the prep line and the grill, coordinating tickets with the quiet confidence of someone who had survived the longest nights. Voice calm, gaze focused, hands fast but gentle. She didn't need to call things out. Jalen only had to catch her glance to know which item needed to go out first. At the prep station, Rhea smiled for the first time. Not a polite smile, a real one. When an older customer thanked her for wrapping the food like you were sending it to family. Marissa wasn't in the office. She was by the sink, wiping down counters with a towel, shoulder to shoulder with the team. No one felt watched. They felt accompanied. Caleb, for the first time in many nights, had nothing to check. He stood behind the cooler counter, leaning lightly against the wall, iced tea in hand. He wasn't supervising. He was absorbing. And what he felt most clearly was breath. This place had started to breathe again. 11:02 p.m. The front doors swung open. A group of high schoolers walked in, 5 of them in hoodies and backpacks, laughter already echoing before they even ordered. "Yo, we want the back table," one shouted, half joking. Layla stepped out to the counter, smiling. "We'll serve you at any table you like. Just keep the yelling down, yeah?" They snickered. One of the boys glanced at Rhea, who was nearby, resting her hand briefly on her braced leg. "Hey, what happened, ma'am? You wipe out on rollerblades? Or just trying to outrun a deadline?" The others burst out laughing. The kitchen stuttered for half a beat. Rhea said nothing. She kept wrapping the chicken sandwich. Her hands didn't stop. Caleb saw it from across the room, but before he could step in, Marissa already had. She walked straight to the table, not fast, not slow. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried just enough in the now quiet room. "In this place, no one is judged by how they look." One kid scrunched his face. "We were just joking." Marissa nodded. "Good. Then learn the difference between jokes and lines you don't cross. Here we serve everyone, but no one serves your attitude." Silence. No more jokes from the group. A few moments later, they placed their orders, this time in normal voices. Caleb looked at Marissa. She didn't look back, just gave a small nod as if to say, "Handled." Rhea brought their food over. No limping, no head down. She walked steadily, like someone who knew she was protected. Jalen murmured to Layla, "Never seen anyone handle it like that." "Calm but sharp." Layla nodded. "That's what real managers do. No microphone, no power trip." 1:17 a.m. A delivery order came in 20 minutes late. No panic. Everyone knew their part and trusted others were doing theirs. Caleb rose from the cooler counter. He made a slow loop, not to check, but to share presence. He reached Rhea, quietly asked, "You okay?" She nodded. "Tonight, I forgot I even had my leg braced." He smiled. "That's the sign of a normal night, the kind of normal we dream about." Before leaving, Caleb pinned a small card to the staff bulletin board. No one noticed at first, but a few hours later, Jalen saw it and read it aloud. "Starting tomorrow, trial run of warm shift policy. Each night, one team member gets a paid 10-minute mid-shift break in the newly reopened rest area. Anyone needing a recharge is allowed. No permission slips. Just let someone know." Rhea looked at Layla. "That's warm." Layla nodded. "Not because of the room, because someone thought of us first." 3 a.m. The floor was mopped. Fryer shut down on time. No one rushed. They cleaned up with professionalism, without pressure. The shift didn't end with a bell. It ended with a shared glance between people who had walked through darkness and now knew we can work hard without losing each other. Wednesday, 12:28 a.m. For the first time in weeks, Riverside 24 was running like a freshly wound clock. Orders moved smoothly, no rejections. Layla checked the cold storage temperature out of sheer habit. Rhea was on the prep line, for the first time, without her leg brace. And Marissa stood at the drink station, refilling pitchers while listening to Jalen talk about a food podcast he'd been dreaming of starting. As for Caleb, he stood before the thick steel door that led into the walk-in freezer. the quietest place in the entire store. 12:32. Victor Salazar arrived right on time. Button shirt, khaki pants, tablet in hand. His expression bore that polished corporate courtesy that came from years of practice. The polite smile, the unreadable eyes. "Didn't expect to see you at this hour," Victor said, offering a light handshake. Caleb didn't smile. "We need a quiet space. Come in." The door shut behind them. The temperature dropped instantly. Cold, dry, and uncompromising. Fluorescent lights bounced off the gleaming steel walls. No one could interrupt this conversation. Caleb didn't waste time. "You signed off on Eli's schedules, time logs, and audit sheets for the past 4 months, correct?" Victor nodded. "I oversee this region, but Eli was the direct night shift operator. I trusted him." "Trusted?" Caleb repeated the word slowly. "You once told me, the night shift is stable, just temporarily short-staffed. Didn't you?" "That's what the reports showed. I didn't notice anything unusual." Caleb paused for a beat, then stepped closer. Not aggressively, but enough for Victor to look him in the eye. "You didn't know, not because you couldn't. You didn't know because you didn't want to." Victor shifted back slightly. "I don't understand." Caleb pulled out his phone and opened an audio file. Ria's voice played. "Every night we have to deep clean past hours. No one dares say a word." Then Jalen's voice. "The cameras aren't for protection. They're for control. They threaten to cut your hours if you push back." Caleb stopped the recording. "In just 2 shifts, I saw more than your reports did in 6 months. So the question is, what exactly were you doing during that time?" Victor clenched his tablet. "I have 12 stores. I can't monitor every hour. I delegate." "You're not paid to delegate," Caleb said, voice steady as stone. "You're paid to lead, and you didn't. No argument, no pushback, just silence. The kind that only falls when someone realizes every excuse is already too late." Caleb handed over an envelope. "This is your termination notice. HR has all the documentation, including handwritten letters from 4 other employees at different locations. Employees you also trusted. As of tomorrow morning, you are no longer part of the Roost Line system." Victor took the envelope with a slightly trembling hand. His face turned pale. Not from the cold, but because for the first time, he was being held accountable for the things he chose not to see. Caleb opened the door. "We're done here." Victor walked out without saying a word. No goodbye, no defense. The freezer door closed behind him, like a period at the end of a sentence for a way of managing that no longer had a place. Caleb returned to the kitchen. Marisa was cleaning the condiment cabinet. Layla was teasing Jalen playfully. And Ria, standing alone at the prep line, was washing trays, her motions slow but steady. She didn't look up, but as Caleb passed, he stopped. She looked at him. No words, just a gaze, but in it, an entire world. Gratitude, trust, awakening after a long season of silence. He nodded, and for the first time in many years, Caleb walked out of the kitchen not because the work was done, but because the people had learned how to stand on their own. Friday, 6:45 p.m. The April weather wasn't cold and it wasn't hot, the kind of climate that just feels normal. And normal was something Roost Line Diner Riverside 24 had longed for months. Caleb Rourke walked into the restaurant. No disguise, no hoodie, no Nick Raines name tag. He wore a light gray button-down, dark jeans, soft-soled shoes, looking no different than a regular customer stopping by after work. No one gasped. No one whispered, "That's the CEO?" They just nodded at him, the way you greet someone who's been there all along. Inside, the golden lighting was soft and even. The prep stations gleamed, clean enough to reflect. The POS no longer beeped endlessly like it used to, because orders were handled steadily, no pile-ups. No one was being yelled at. No one was running. No one had to prove their worth just to keep their shift. Marissa stood in the center of the kitchen, not in a manager's blazer, but in a vintage Roost Line t-shirt. She was rinsing cutting boards, chuckling as Layla told a story about a regular who ordered a combo with no bun, no meat, No lettuce, just the lemonade. Jalen pushed a new shipment into storage. No one rushed him. Marcus, who had just finished his morning shift, stopped by to drop off a box of homemade cookies for the team, something he used to only do in secret. Caleb strolled through, not to inspect, but to see everything that had once gone wrong, now set right. 8:02 p.m. He sat at the corner table by the window, the same spot where Eli once shouted at Jalen, where Rhea once collapsed from leg pain, and where Caleb himself once stood silently as the truth revealed itself, layer by layer. Now the table was polished. The old plastic flower was replaced with a real sprig of lavender. Someone had brought it from their garden. Marissa came over and sat across from him. "Is it done?" she asked. Caleb nodded. "Do you know what I used to think?" he asked. "What?" "At first I thought I came here to fix a store. Then I thought I came to fire a manager. After that I believed I needed to implement a new feedback system." Marissa tilted her head. "And now?" she asked. Caleb smiled. "I've realized all I ever needed to do was create a place where people didn't have to strain just to be respected." Marissa nodded. No more words were needed. Before leaving, Caleb stepped back into the kitchen. He called everyone over. No formal announcement, no whiteboard. From his shirt pocket, he pulled out a set of new cards, the size of a credit card, but with a matte silver finish, not glossy. He handed one to each person. Rhea took the first, then Jalen, Layla, Marcus, and finally Marissa. Each card had a simple line engraved. "This is not a badge of power. It's a symbol that says, you matter, even when no one's watching." See, he didn't need to explain. Rhea held the card, staring at it for a long moment. Then she looked up, her voice soft, but everyone heard it. "I almost gave up." Not anymore. 3:41 a.m. Caleb stepped out through the glass doors of Roost-Line Diner. The night breeze brushed across his face like a gentle farewell. He paused, turned back to look at the storefront, where the Roost-Line logo reflected the soft golden light glowing from within. Not flashy, not loud, but warm. He took a deep breath. "At last," he thought. "This is a place worth working for."